This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, everybody, members of the public. Welcome to tonight's Borough Council meeting. I'm going to start by calling our meeting to order. Can you please read the sunshine notice?
Pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of the 2022 meeting dates was published in the Courier News and the Burnsville News on December 9th, 2021, and posted at the Municipal Complex and the Borough Library. Action may be taken.
Please stand for the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. A roll call, please.
Councilman Caminetti?
Here.
Council President Corigliano?
Here.
Councilwoman Dietrich?
Here.
Councilman Lemma?
Here.
Councilwoman Murphy?
Yes, here.
Councilman Sweeney?
Here.
Mayor Skinner?
I am here. Okay, moving on to public comments, 5 minutes per person for non-agenda items. It's the policy of the Borough Council that all public comments on an issue should be limited to 5 minutes per person. Comments may be made on any non-agenda item or subject pertaining to borough issues. Comments pertaining to public hearings should be saved for that section of the agenda. There'll be no debating between residents. Comments should be addressed to the mayor and council on your phone or your device. So I do ask that members of the public who aren't speaking, please mute your phones or computers, because it does create feedback. So, and when you do speak, just need your name and address. So I'm opening up the meeting to non-agenda item public comments. Does anybody would like to make a public comment? Okay, it appears that nobody wants to make any comments on non-agenda items, so I'm closing that section of the meeting. Moving on to a reading of somebody's got background noise. I don't know if it's one of us or. Okay. Executive session meeting of December 14th, 2021. Do I have a motion to approve the executive session meeting minutes?
So moved.
And a second, please.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Councilman Caminetti?
Yes.
Council President Corigliano?
Yes.
Councilwoman Dietrich?
Yes.
Councilman Lemma?
Yes.
Councilwoman Murphy?
Yes.
Councilman Sweeney?
Aye.
Yeah, it passes. Moving on to old business, the rescue truck for the fire department.
All right, I'll speak to this.
Thank you.
Sure. Although the council's well aware of what's going on, let me just give a quick summary for any callers out there that aren't familiar. So, obviously, our fire department is made up of a group of volunteers that give their time and risk their safety for PG. And they maintain multiple vehicles that enable them to do that job, one of which is the rescue truck, which the current truck is a 1995 with a walk-in box. So the back of the box opens up and the volunteers go in to change it and get equipment.
Jamie, could you get closer to the microphone? We're having trouble hearing you.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. So the current truck is a 1995 International with a walk-in box, and it goes on approximately a third of the fire department's calls. There's also some other aging vehicles in the fire department group, including a 1998 pumper truck that will be coming up in need of replacement here shortly as well. But tonight we're talking about the rescue. So starting before my tenure on council, I think about 2017, the fire department and its internal truck committee had been researching, planning, kind of requesting a new rescue truck. And in the spring, early summer of 2019, they did a presentation to the council basically requesting a Pierce heavy rescue truck that had a 6-person cab with kind of standing changing room in the cab, and a non-walk-in box. And that was the spring of 2019. And at that point, the council really didn't feel like we had enough data to support, such a purchase. It was about $750,000. We hemmed and hawed a bit, and in the spring of 2021, we decided we'd hire a fire apparatus consultant company to come in basically as an unbiased opinion on what does our department need, what does our town need, and give us some information. And I think most of us, both on the fire department and on council, that report wasn't all that helpful. Honestly, it was missing a lot of details. Even after, Don Lemon, at the time, Randy went back and forth with this company asking for additional details. We really just didn't get the report we were wanting. But at the end of the day, the report did imply that the requested rescue truck would be a reasonable choice for our town. So at that point, I met with the fire department along with Don Lemma, and we basically said that at this point, something similar was recommended, but we'd like to investigate some alternatives in purchasing, alternative in manufacturers. So we requested that the fire department get us additional trucks and prices, so that we could basically shop around and see if we could find something that we felt was a little bit more budget friendly, but still got the fire department the equipment that they needed and wanted. So right at the end of the year, the fire chief sent out an email with all the trucks that they investigated, and you all got that at the same time I did. And they weren't, it wasn't an elaborate email, but obviously a summary of the truck, a price of the truck. And there was a little variation. Each truck listed 2 types of generators, a PTO and a hydraulic. The hydraulic would be the higher end one, if you will. My understanding is it can run while the truck is idling, versus the other one, the truck has to be running for it to work. And then there are some various chassis in there. You all saw that. So at this point, I think the council really needs to decide, will we support a purchase of a new rescue truck at this time? And if so, which vehicle do you think is a good choice? We know that the fire department prefers sticking with a Pierce truck, which is what they have probably the most experience with. But obviously there's other ones out there. Let me just add that I did request, or the consulting company did give us 2 rescue truck manufacturers groups to get estimates from, of which we asked the fire department to get, and we have not seen those. That was a company in Manasquan named Rescue One, and another company out of Colorado. So we have not seen those. But you have what I have: prices, truck types. I have an opinion on what truck I think would be a good choice, but I'd really like to hear from the council. I'm happy to answer any questions on this summary or on what you received at the end of last month.
Jamie, just one question so I'm on the same page. You were very specific on forwarding the request for the 2 alternative vehicles from the consultant to the fire company, and that was a few months ago. Did the fire company get the quotes, or give you a reason why they did not get the quotes? Because I think that was the reason we were waiting from October, November to today, was for them to get the quotes on those vehicles.
Well, they were going to get multiple quotes, which obviously they got us some of them. I did specifically request those 2 companies, again, the Rescue One and SVI. And when I got the data that we all got at the end of December, those companies were not included, which I wasn't expecting. And so I did send out a couple emails requesting, why not, explanation, as well as I did request a few more details on one of the trucks, and I did not get a response. So
It's disappointing.
So I believe the fire chief is on the line. I know the fire chief is on the line. So why don't we have him give a quick, I don't want a presentation of, rescue trucks. He's going to do that at nauseam.
Well, all I can say in response is we had a meeting in the firehouse with Don and Jamie, at which time I explained that we did not have any, excuse me, relationship with SVI or Rescue One such that we felt we could get pricing in a timely manner, and that we were going to go with Sutphin and Ferrara. Jamie did send me an email asking me those questions. I replied to that email immediately. I don't know why she didn't see my answer. And that was
No,
what
I
I.
didn't, John. I'm sorry, I didn't. I'll look in my junk box, but I didn't see a response.
Donna, does that answer your question?
It answers it, and if John replied, I feel much better about it. I know Jamie had sent out a follow-up email to John and the President Kingsley saying she hadn't heard anything, and I just want to make sure that she got the answers that she needed so that we can have the answers we need as a council.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't get any response. It didn't get into my inbox for whatever reason.
Chief McDermott, when you first came on, there was a lot of background noise and things like that. Can you just state that, at least the beginning part of your statement again? Because I was like, I didn't realize you were speaking, and there was like a lot of background noise. So just to again, I'm not trying to say it again, but just so we can
had
hear.
our meeting here at the firehouse, I believe it was in October.
Mhm.
We advised that we had no relationship with either SVI or Rescue One and didn't feel we'd be able to get pricing in a very short turnaround. We did have a relationship with Sutphin and Ferrara, which is why we were able to get pricing in such a short turnaround. And that's the reason that's the way we went. It was our understanding that that was acceptable. We were getting 2 more prices. We gave you 3 different prices to look at, and so that's where we are.
John, is it your opinion that the pricing from the other 2 vendors would be similar to the ones you received from the 2 that you did quote?
Yeah, I mean, we've looked at numerous manufacturers at different trade shows and so forth, including SVI, and they're all coming back in about the same ballpark. KME, SVI, they're all going to be in roughly the same ballpark.
Okay, thank you, John.
Right, okay, so Jamie, I think maybe we should have, the fire department gave their recommendation, give them a couple minutes to just explain that to, so the public hears also, so why they're going that direction, and the council can bat it back and forth, I guess.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chief, do you want to just give I want to say quick, I don't mean 30 seconds, but not 7 hours either, but.
No, again, we've discussed this in the past, and at our presentation, we gave the reasoning why we selected Pierce at that point. We've been with Pierce for a number of years. We've had 3 apparatus built by Pierce. We're comfortable with them. We're comfortable with, the quality of the apparatus. We know that these apparatus have to last. Originally we were slated to replace them every 20 years. We're going on 25 to 30 years to replace these things. So, we're looking for something that's going to last the town for that kind of a time frame. And so, I'd like to say we did our due diligence. We went out, we visited other fire departments and looked at rescue trucks they had from different manufacturers. We went to trade shows and looked at different rescue trucks from different manufacturers. And after doing all that, the Pierce is what we chose to go with as a department. And so we spec'd it through them.
Chief John Sweeney here. I'm looking it over, and I understand the preference for Pierce. I don't know the difference between an Enforcer and an Arrow, and I don't know the difference between a hydraulic generator and a PTO generator. So,
Okay.
So I'm at a loss with some of these things here.
Essentially, in terms of the cab and chassis, at least for Pierce, it's sort of like if you went to Tesla, one model's the high end, one model's a little lower end, and they have several along the line. Originally, we spec'd the Arrow XT because our engine 2 is an Arrow XT. We're happy with that, and it would be, virtually identical in terms of all its functions and operations. However, when the council asked us to try to cut the price of the vehicle, we changed and went to an Enforcer cab. It's actually perhaps slightly roomier, but it doesn't have all the bells and whistles that an Arrow XT would have. In terms of the generator, a PTO generator runs off the transmission, so that you cannot begin to run the generator until you are on scene, have put the vehicle in parked, and shifted over the transmission so that it will run the generator. A hydraulic generator runs separate and apart from the workings of the truck, such that you're able to actually turn that on as you're leaving the firehouse, so that when you arrive on scene, it's warmed up. You can immediately turn on whatever lighting on the truck is run by the generator. That's essentially the difference. The PTO generator has to sit between the frame rails of the vehicle because it has to be attached to the transmission. The hydraulic generator can be placed in different positions, including up on top in one of the boxes up on top. So again, that's another difference in terms of how things are installed on the truck.
And
So, John, I know that when we had our meeting and the fire consultant had said that the hydraulic generator is just a better choice. Do you think that it makes for because I don't know how much you use it, but for how much you use it, when you use it, do you think that's a critical difference? Do you think I know you had chose the PTO because of money. Do you think it would make a big difference to the department?
Yes, Jamie, you're correct. We'd originally spec'd a hydraulic generator, but we then changed to a PTO generator because it's less expensive.
Right.
And it brought the cost of the truck down.
Okay.
In terms of, no, to answer your question, if we pull up on an accident scene, sure, it's nice to be able to just throw on all the lights and be able to start going to work in terms of getting the equipment out and doing whatever we have to do. I can't tell you that, it takes 20 minutes to get the other generator up and running. It doesn't. It just takes a few more minutes.
Okay. All right. Well, that helps me. Thank you.
And the current, Chief, the current rescue truck has a PTO generator, correct?
The current rescue truck has a PTO generator. The engines have hydraulic generators.
Chief, this is Mark. A quick question. When the rescue truck rolls, which I heard was about one out of every 3 calls, how many of those calls require a generator?
Well, again, we do use the rescue to light things up, probably more so even than the engine at night if we have something. So I can't say it's every call, certainly. But we also run other things off that generator at a scene, such as power tools, fans. It's not just lighting.
No, understood. But what I'm wondering is, if you roll the rescue truck to a chimney fire, you're likely not going to use the generator. But if you roll the rescue truck to a major auto accident, you will likely use the generator, especially at night. Would that be
No,
correct?
actually, we would use lights from both trucks probably at night on a chimney fire, particularly if you have guys that are going up on the roof and so forth. You want to try to light things up as much as you can. Plus, we only, we carry extra fans on the rescue. So if there's smoke in the house, we're probably, unless we can use the electricity in the house, which sometimes we can, but if we can't, then we'd be probably using that generator as well as the generator on the engine.
Understood. But perhaps a chimney fire wasn't a good example.
That's okay. Certainly there are calls that, we could handle it with the lights on the engine. But frankly, the tower on the rescue is larger and has more lighting capacity than the one on the engine, so.
And just a point, one of our firefighters was severely injured 6 years ago in a scene where there was not adequate lighting.
Well, I'm sorry, can I weigh in here for a second,
And
Chief?
was that because of the timing of the lighting?
It was, it wasn't our call, it was in another town, but it was one of our firefighters. But it shows the importance of lighting. The other department had taken the lighting down but lighting is probably, besides getting a hose line into a burning building, is probably Chief can maybe argue, but second or third most important thing to do at a nighttime call, whether it's a fire or whatever, just because of the dangers of operating in people's backyards. It doesn't have lighting or off-road or whatever. So
Sure.
Wait, hold on for a second, because I must have missed something here. I don't think the discussion,
Let
unless
me just clarify that whether it's a PTO or a hydraulic generator, the power is the same, excuse me, the power is the same of
That's
the
right.
lighting. So the actual,
That's correct.
light is no different. Okay.
Right. So it's not about lighting, yes or no. It's about what's providing the power, whether it's a PTO generator or a hydraulic-based generator to run the lighting.
but my
Correct.
comment to Mark was just using lighting.
It's also, I guess, about timing. How quickly the generator is ready to go.
Yeah, well, my understanding, unless I missed it, and Chief, please clarify, is that you roll up to the scene, you park it, you put it in park, and once you put it in park, you can use the PTO generator to generate power. Takes a little bit, maybe a minute longer than if you had turned on the hydraulic generator en route. Is that accurate, Chief?
With the exception of the minute, yes, it takes a few minutes because you have to get out, you have to ground it, you have to do certain things before you can fire everything up. But yes, it takes a few more minutes.
Okay, so are we talking about 5 minutes or less, or are we talking about 20 minutes?
No, you're probably talking 5 minutes or less.
Thank you.
Chief, this is Mark. I'm assuming the hydraulic hydraulically run generator requires a rather large hydraulic pump somewhere within the drivetrain or engine.
No, the generator it's got its own pump, so it is running off the truck's fuel supply, certainly. But
So there's a no,
the hydraulic generator is a self-contained unit.
it's a self-contained. So it's actually another engine being run off the small diesel engine driving the generator.
Essentially.
Okay.
I just wanted to make my light comment, not whether it's PTO, hydraulic, but the importance of lighting. That was the only reason I made that comment, not how the light is generated by PTO but I was just trying to drive home the importance of having very adequate lighting at a scene. That was the only.
Understood.
I think it's an important point to know that the power is the same.
Right.
So, but sorry,
yeah.
Richard,
We're getting off track.
Chief, I have another question with the hydraulic versus the PTO. If the PTO is running, is utilizing the transmission of the rescue truck, is there any difference between the two in terms of servicing? Does the transmission last longer when you have a hydraulic because you're not utilizing it? Or is there a benefit in that matter?
I don't know that I can answer that question. We have them serviced every year, so I don't know that there's more service.
Chief, I have a question about the reliability of PTO versus
I think
hydraulic.
I asked the consultant the same question about the two different, let me just finish for a second. I think I asked that same question, John, about service to the consultant. And Don, correct me if you remember differently, but I don't think there was a big difference in that arena.
Not that I remember.
Go ahead, GP. Sorry about that.
About reliability, Chief, the question is, right now, my understanding is the existing rescue truck works with a PTO-based generator. Has that
Correct.
been cause for concern? Has it failed in any critical instances where you've needed it and it hasn't been up to the task?
No, not that I can recall.
Thank you.
The one other difference between the PTO and the hydraulic is if you do need to move the truck, because things go bad at a fire and something's beginning to collapse or come down or whatever, the hydraulic, you can put it in drive and go. The PTO, you got to shut it down and switch it over. And so again, it takes a little bit longer, but that would be the only other thing I can think of.
I think we're spending a lot of time debating what's a relatively small delta between prices from each manufacturer.
Yeah, just so the public knows, this is about a $10,000 difference.
Yeah.
And the prices of the trucks we're talking about range from about $730,000 to $870,000, I think was the top one.
And I really wanted to know what the difference was. That was my
I'm
original question.
actually surprised to see the delta in price for
It's
Ferrara
60, sorry.
types of generators was only about 10,000, but the delta in price for Pierce was anywhere from 25 to 50,000 between hydraulic and PTO. So I was kind of surprised to see that it was that big a
Yeah.
difference. And it was actually as low as $4,000 for Sutton, the third manufacturer.
And just as a point again from the consultant, and this is not me poo-pooing Pierce in any way. The consultant's opinion was that, 20, 30 plus years ago, a Pierce truck was a special vehicle. It was top notch, top of the line, etc. But as of it's changed owners and so forth. And now he doesn't believe there's a differential with Pierce compared to, many other vehicles out there. So just his opinion. I thought you should know. Any other questions from council members?
Amy, I'd really like to know what the thinking of your committee is as to what would be the best selection. I will say that when I was in Atlantic City at NJLM, I took the opportunity to stop at the Ferrara booth, and I met the owner of the franchise as well as a representative from the factory. And they gave me a tour of how they produce vehicles and how they're made. I do have some experience in that area. I actually bought 2 fire truck chassis back in the 90s for our first aid squad when I was a first aid squad member. And so I'm kind of familiar with this whole process, not to the extent that John is, as far as fire specific. But I have to say, I was impressed with Ferrara. They're not very far from here. I think they're in Lake Hopatcong, which is where the service facility is. And I felt comfortable meeting the people who ran it. I'll just say that for them. I did not meet the people at Pierce. They could be just as nice. But I felt comfortable in their representations and their commitment to a very short delivery time.
Well, I think that's a real key point. Obviously, this department has been waiting years for this rescue truck, and the time differential is significant. I mean, it's 9 months versus 2 years for a Pierce. So I do think that's something.
Actually, Jamie, I don't know where that number came from, although it is a much longer lead time. It's 20 months, not 24 months.
Okay, so it's 9 months versus 20 months. So I apologize. But no, I also, I don't obviously don't have.
Apologize. That's what was printed on the sheet, but it was a misprint.
Oh, okay. I obviously don't have a lot of personal experience. Well, I have no personal experience in purchasing a fire truck. But I did make a couple calls, and the few people I know involved in this line, and I got good opinions on Ferrara as well. Chief, so Brad actually forwarded me the email. When you responded to my email, you just didn't copy me on it. You copied Brad, so I never saw it. So, but I did see.
I sent it. Reply to you. I don't even think I copied Brad. Hang on, let me find it.
It's fine. It's fine. Brad forwarded it to me. But I didn't get a chance to read it. But in my initial request to you, I did ask if you got any feedback from Bernardsville, because as you all probably saw, Bernardsville actually has a pending, I think it's an engine though, from Ferrara. And I was wondering, why they were thinking about purchasing, what was their opinion of Ferrara? Do they have Ferrara vehicles? How's it going for them? Because like Mark, I do like the idea of them being a local company. Obviously, the price tag is nice. But did you talk to anyone in Burnsville?
Yeah, that was in my response. So I don't know.
I know. He just forwarded it to me, and I just didn't I can't read it and be a part of it.
Burnsville has never had a Ferrara before, is the answer. Okay. Burnsville tells me they went with the Ferrara because Ferrara gave them the flexibility to design and carry some equipment that we don't traditionally carry on one of our engines. So the other manufacturers apparently weren't able to accommodate what they wanted, so they chose to go with Ferrara.
Okay, so they don't have experience with it. Okay.
I think all the companies are relatively local. I mean, Pierce is in
Piscataway.
where's their Piscataway? Frere's up in Sparta. I'm not sure where
Sparta.
Sutphin is.
That's
not built in-
Louisiana, I think. That was
They're not built in New Jersey, but I mean, the dealers are all relatively local. I mean, because if you have a problem with the apparatus, it goes to the dealer to get fixed, or they come down here. So up here, if they're coming from Piscataway or down here from Sparta. So all the dealers are relatively local. So, I mean, they're not next door, but they're not in Pennsylvania or South Jersey or wherever.
Yeah. And it's just as a reminder to the council and to let everyone on the call know that in 2020, we set aside $350,000 towards this purchase in our budget. And then last year, 2021, about just under 460,000. So we do have set aside for the purchase of this rescue about just over $750,000. So
Jamie, I need to correct you. I'm sorry. Yes, what you just said was my impression also. That is not the case. I figured it might be a good idea to check the numbers before this discussion. So I checked with our CFO. And the numbers were 350 and then 406.
406.
Yeah,
Okay.
406. Okay, so it was a total of
Oh,
seven.
actually, I knew that. I'm sorry, because I was like, Nancy sent me those numbers, so I apologize. I knew that.
So we have some, if we want to make this purchase, which I'm sure we want to do, we want to make this purchase, we have to some work to do. And that is apparently the ordinance for the 350,000 back in, according to Dale, back in 2017 or 2018 was never done. So right now we only have 406,000 allocated to this purchase.
Different than what he told me.
Okay, and we still have to do one for another 350 if we want a total of 756. And that came from the CFO. Now, that doesn't mean we could not approve the purchase and get an order in. I have been investigating other options on how to pay for this. And I have some creative thinking that I'm just waiting for one detail on from our auditor on how to pay for this. Keep in mind, even if we approve 750, it's not like we have 750 in the bank ready to pay for it. We still have to raise that money. And traditionally, we've raised that money through borrowing, and that's the way we would have to do it here.
Yeah.
We're borrowing not all of it. I have to tell you, at this moment in time, we have $258,000 in the CIF, which I believe we could use for this. So we could get a deposit down and then we'd have to borrow the remainder. And
Okay.
I'm going to have something at the next meeting for everyone to digest on how to pay for that difference without going long-term debt, meaning bonding.
Okay.
But as far as the 350 goes, I don't know why. We have to investigate it if we're interested. But it was never done back in 19 that 350 was ordinance.
Oh,
So
that's frustrating.
That.
And that was not my impression from the information I got. So thank you for clarifying. But
Can I ask a
obviously,
question,
it's
Jamie?
nice to know that there is that money to put in.
I didn't know that until about 2 hours ago.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Well, as Chief McDermott has told us many times, and we've seen the paperwork, it is advantageous for us to put down a significant deposit. We do get a little bit of a price break, so that would be.
I believe we'll be able.
Can I ask a question?
I believe we'll be able to do that.
Great.
Okay, GP. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
yes. Question for Jamie and or Don about the two outstanding quotes that we're still waiting for. Are they in process? Or has this just been forgotten? Is this dead and buried? Because it seems like if we're waiting for the quotes to come in, it seems a little bit premature to be talking about how much money and how we're going to pay for things.
Well, it was my impression from the meeting in October that I remember him saying it was going to take a little bit of time, but I thought it was still going to get done. At this point, I'm pretty happy with having the estimates that we have. Obviously, if the council feels strongly that they need more options, because the consultant did make these particular suggestions, obviously we can get them. But prices go up at the end of January here pretty soon. So, you know, there is a part of me that just feels like it's just time to get this done for these gentlemen, and use the estimates that we have. Because I remember Brad Fagan mentioning that he thought it would take months and months because of that lack of relationship. Don, do you remember that conversation?
Yeah, I do. So just to get on the same page, I actually thought we were getting the quotes, and that's why we were waiting the 3 months. So it was a surprise that we didn't. Now, having said that, I asked the chief the question, would the prices be in alignment with what we saw? And he said it's his professional understanding that it would be. So waiting an additional 3 or 4 months beyond today with a known price increase, I'm not sure is worth the effort, although I think we will regret the miscommunication that happened back in October.
Well, I think with all due respect, we owe it to the taxpayers to look at all of the options that we have reasonably and to give the tools to the fire department that the fire department needs. I agree, but this is not about giving something to the fire department. This is also about managing our finances in the most responsible way we can while still getting the job done. It's not like we have the money under the mattress. I mean, Mark just described the borrowing that would be involved. I think the danger here is that we look at something and say, okay, well, 725, 770, what's the difference? That's a big difference in terms of taxpayer money. So I take that obligation, that fiduciary responsibility very seriously.
I would like to say also the fact that we've kicked this can down for at least 7 years. So 7 years ago, the fire department came to the town. I was not on the council at the time, but I know it was discussed. And then it was discussed again in the 6 years and the 5-year mark and the 4-year mark and the 3-year mark from 3 years from today. And the fact that if this truck had been purchased 5 years ago, we wouldn't be having these conversations because it would probably be under $700,000 and we wouldn't be worrying about, well, let's get 17 bids from 17 manufacturers. A lot of that onus is on the borough.
Let me stop.
I'm not finished yet. GP, I'm not finished yet. Okay. I've let everybody speak. I think I get a little turn to speak. So I think the fact that we've let this go on and go on, we could let it go on for another year or two, and then we're going to be up to close to the million mark. And we're going to say, oh, we need to get more prices. So not just to say, let's go buy something, but this process has been going on for a long time. And I think as Councilman Lemma and Councilwoman Murphy said, I think it's time we get going and do this.
With all due respect, Mayor, I don't agree with your version of what transpired over the last few years. And believe me, I've had a front row seat to all of it. And part of the reason for the delays is because we did not have data points to support the decision one way or another. That's not on us. So please don't say that, you know, we've been dragging our feet on this in any way, shape, or form. That's just not accurate, Mayor.
It was said a few years, like 2 years ago, this is the first we've heard you needed a rescue truck. That was not true. So
that's not true. Mayor, I have the documentation, I have the paper trail, I have the questions that I put in writing multiple times, the requests multiple times. Not accurate, Mayor.
But this discussion about buying a rescue truck is not a new thing. Okay, maybe your points that you wanted, that what equipment and what was used and what was not used, maybe that's a couple years old. But the fact that the fire department said many years ago, we need to replace this rescue truck and it's coming down the road. Okay, yes, put together a committee. So
that's true. That's true. But we still have to go through a responsible process.
So let me just add one point. If we were to go out and get the prices from the other quotes, from the other vendors, the prices will go up on the units that we're most likely to purchase. So if we find out that the alternative bidders are unacceptable or the same price, we cost the taxpayers $50,000 or $60,000. I have to take the chief at his word that he believes that the pricing that we'll expect to receive is similar to what we've already received. And delaying it guarantees an increase across the board on the 3 quotes we already have. I think I agree with Jamie. It's time for us to make a decision on this. And
John,
maybe there's a compromise for everyone. First of all,
John Sweeney had something. Mark, let John Sweeney talk first.
I mean, my bigger concern is that the economy is different now than it was 3 years ago when we were having discussions on this. And I understand that you have, price increases, in good times. but we're dealing with supply chain issues. We're dealing with vehicles that are made out of steel. The price of steel is through the roof right now. So I would not expect a price increase in 2022 to be commensurate with a price increase in 2020. The cost of the materials is just going through the roof on everything.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in one of the reports, it was like a 10% jump on some of these prices, here at the end of the month. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, GP, I really do understand your points. And I, like Don, was expecting that additional information, but we have a few options. The chief, says that these other prices would very likely be in that same range. And between the price increases here in a few weeks and the delay that we've had over the last several years, as Mayor Skinner confirmed, I do feel like we need to make a decision.
Everyone, I'm sorry to tell you this, but if you think we're going to get an order in a week, it's not going to happen. You have to pass an ordinance first. It's going to take 30 days. Okay.
I know that. I just wonder, and maybe this is my naivety, but I sort of wonder if we, handshaked on a deal, if they would honor that price.
Oh, we could do that.
I don't know, John McDermott, if you have any thoughts on that.
I think, John, we should be asking that question.
As I understand it, Ferrara will accept a letter of intent. Pierce would accept a purchase order, and if that purchase order had language in it that it was subject to, the ordinance passing, I'm not sure what they would say, but you could try it that way.
John, let me ask you one question. There's one value that I can't attribute, and you can enlighten us. So right now, Ferrara is slightly less expensive than the Pierce, at $30,000, $40,000. But the delivery times, as was pointed out, 9 months versus 20 months, 9 months for the Ferrara. What is that additional 11 months worth to you to get a truck 11 months sooner? If you had to put a dollar value on it, what would you say that would be?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I can put a dollar value on it. We've been trying to get this put through for at least 5 years. So, a little bit longer isn't really going to make that much of a difference. Also, I would like to point out, and if I'm reading it correctly, Ferrara has an option to purchase a 5-year warranty. They give a 2-year warranty. The majority of what's in the Pierce price are 5-year warranties other than manufacturer's warranties. So if you add that extra, I think it's, hold on, let me not misquote.
The 5-year plan is $7,800, $7,900. And extended warranty from 2 to 5 is $24,000.
To extend. So if you add that into the price of the Ferrara, the difference is at least if you go with the Enforcer from Pierce, the difference is not $30,000 or $40,000. I think it's only about $3,500.
I think we definitely need to be comparing apples to apples here, and now I'm feeling like we're not comparing apples to apples with the numbers that are on the sheet in front of me.
Me too.
So I have to pull up the other. So the Pierce Enforcer and the Pierce Arrow at $775 and $809 include a 5-year warranty.
Well, if you look at the warranties, yeah, there's actually some are even 10, but there's a number of warranties. John? Can you hear me?
Hold on.
Yes, go ahead, John. Chief.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, hold on. I understand the Ferrara, I believe they call that a bumper-to-bumper warranty, but Pierce has, for instance, where is it? On the page here. Okay. The cab warranty structure is 10-year, paint 10-year, electronics 5-year, transmission 5-year.
What's concerning to me about the Pierce quote is it says the basic warranty is only 1 year.
Well, I don't think that's
Page 13 towards the bottom.
right. But then if they're adding in those additional warranties, which is included in the pricing.
Where is the additional warranty, say, for the cab, or for the cab?
Go to the next page, you'll see. Where is it?
I can't
First
find
line.
it.
Warranty
And
structure.
Warranty 15-year for the structure.
Foam system has not available warranty. Whereas
There's no
the
foam
Ferrari
system on this truck. That would have been on an engine. There's no foam system on this truck.
Okay, that answers that.
So, there's a cost difference. Yes,
I have to say, I think you should be able to
expensive,
bumper to
but
bumper
it's not
better.
quite as great if you go with their 5-year bumper to bumper.
So if we were to add on that.
I'm sorry,
Ferrari-
John, what's the last thing you said?
If we were to add on the Ferrara warranty to 5 years in an attempt to make it apples to apples, as John just mentioned, you're looking at 740 versus 775, right?
Sounds about right. You're looking at,
Listen, everyone, look,
So it's a $24,000 bump.
no, I don't think that's cool.
I would love to see the other two quotes because I agree with GP that we have a responsibility to our taxpayers. That having been said, one of those two quotes I just want to see because it's a builder who's in New Jersey who I dealt with when I was on a first aid squad. And they're a great builder, but I know they're going to be expensive because it's very simply to build fire trucks in New Jersey or apparatus in New Jersey is a hell of a lot more expensive than building apparatus in Louisiana or Mississippi where some of these manufacturers, Texas, where some of these manufacturers construct their vehicles. I'm sorry, GP, but this has gone on long enough. It was probably 5 years ago when it was brought to our attention that the rescue truck's going to need to be replaced. We started getting some detail after that. I don't remember the dates. And about 2 years ago, I remember getting a firm thing. I remember seeing this big binder in our administrator's office of a quote from Pierce. It's now dragged on to 2022. Everyone, I'm the first to say it. We need to make a call on this and make a decision. I think we should bind a commitment with the manufacturer. I think we should get an ordinance on for the differential in price and get that ordinance passed as soon as possible so the PO can be issued. We cannot issue a PO even with a condition on it. We cannot issue a PO unless we have the money lined up. That's just the law. However, we can issue a letter of commitment, which is non-binding. All that and the previous discussions, I'd love to know what the committee's recommendation is of the 3 vehicles.
Go ahead, John. You can speak first.
So I am not a professional and I have to defer to our professionals. Even though there is a premium on the price, the professionals prefer the Pierce engine. What I didn't know and the chief addressed was what's the premium on the time, and he's not as concerned about the time. So I would lean toward the Pierce, even though we're spending more. I would probably just go with the PTO generator because the existing unit has it, and the chief indicated it hadn't presented a problem in the past. The condition would be, though, and the chief had said this very specifically, that they would not accept a PO or a contingency, or a letter of commitment, which would increase the price by tens of thousands of dollars. At that point, the differential between the Ferrara and the Pierce would be so substantial that I think we'd have to lean toward the Ferrara. So my vote is PTO, Ferrara, assuming that the chief can speak with them to get some sort of a document that they would accept, pending move by the council with alacrity to put the necessary ordinance in place.
John, did you mean PTO Ferrara or PTO Pierce?
PTO Pierce, with the condition that we still get the discount by hitting the January 26th date, where somehow they extended with some documentation that they would receive from us, that we would move forward in good faith with the legal hurdles that we need to go through over the next 30 to 45 days.
It's 120 days before.
Don, I heard that Pierce is requiring a purchase order.
That's correct. So what I'm saying is
Okay. They're requiring a document. I'm not sure exactly what we can work out.
okay, so John, assuming you could work something out with them in good faith, I would vote for Pierce PTO with an acceptance of a document pending the ordinance passage, which is going to take us at least a month and maybe 2 months. So I don't box yourself into 30 days. There has to be 2 readings.
Jamie, your thoughts?
So my thoughts, I mean, I have similar thoughts to Don, and I absolutely understand his thinking. I will say that I'm leaning a little bit towards the Ferrera for a couple of reasons, and that's, you know, obviously there's a price difference. Even with the $24,000 extended warranty, it's still $20,000 less than the cheapest Pierce. But I guess more so is the timing. Because of when, you know, this has been a long process, and this truck would come a year sooner than the Pierce. And we know that we have to purchase other trucks down the line, and I would love to see us get a little bit of space between some of these purchases, because delaying it and having, you know, basically bumper to bumper purchases is, you know, even more challenging than having a couple of years between them. So although I would be supportive of the Pierce if we knew we could get the 2021 price, and I agree, I would go the PTO generator. It just doesn't seem as though Chief McDermott has a lot of concerns about continuing with the PTO generator. I'm leaning towards the Ferrera for the reasons I mentioned.
Thank you.
Quick question, Don, you said Pierce, there's 2 Pierces.
So yes, thank you, John. So the less expensive Pierce has a kind of a standard chassis, and I always get these backwards. The Enforcer or the Arrow is more expensive, and it's a more robust chassis. I believe the way the consultant phrased it was the more robust chassis in the long run could warrant the additional expenditure. Seeing as how money is tight right now, I would say to go with the standard chassis, which I believe is the chassis that the existing vehicle has, if I'm not mistaken.
The Enforcer is the less expensive.
Thank you, the Enforcer.
Yeah.
The Enforcer with the PTO generator is the way it is currently spec'd.
Correct.
That was the original that Chief McDermott presented to us in 2019.
Nancy, why don't you just go down the list? Be a lot easier.
You're muted, Nancy. There you go.
Okay, yes.
And you've done 2 already, but.
Yeah, Don and Jamie, Councilman Caminiti.
Yes, you're asking for an opinion on which way I'm leaning at this point,
Yes.
or what is being discussed?
Yeah, your opinion on.
Okay. Well, I defer, like Don, I defer to the professionals and to the professional opinions. I would like to see a little bit more information. I would have liked to have seen those 2 quotes, just because, with all due respect, Chief, I don't know that that kind of a casual approach to saying, well, it's going to be close. I don't know what that does to the actual pricing out the door, and also what it does in terms of delivery times, which, as we've seen, is a relevant discussion point here. I would also like to see what the differences in prices do in terms of the financial costs, the total costs for paying for this equipment. I share Jamie's concern about not having the pumper replacement stacked up too closely with the rescue truck replacement, simply because I see enormous pressure on our taxpayers going forward. And that's something that I take very, very seriously. So I just want to underscore the fact that I don't know why we didn't get those two quotes, those additional data points. I'm a data-driven guy. I make decisions based on the best data I have at hand and try to make the best decision. The data points have been at best sloppy up until now. So am I comfortable with either one of the options at this point? No, but if I had to make a decision with a gun pointed at me tonight, I would opt for the least cost option with the quickest delivery time, which would be the Ferrara with the PTO option.
Councilwoman Dietrich.
Thanks, Nancy. I've learned a lot tonight because I really don't know anything about fire trucks. So this was helpful. Data is still somewhat missing to GP's point, but what's been presented has been good. I do also agree that Ferrera seems like a good option. I have a question about the timing. The quote is saying 9 months, and I wonder if if it truly would take more than that amount of time, and if we could use that as a negotiation aspect of take up to 12, 15 months, but let's look at the price. So I don't know if that would help them. Supply chains are tough right now, so not sure if they would actually stick to that 9 months. So maybe we could use that to our advantage. But otherwise, I do think that's correct in terms of the option I would choose. And then Jamie's point about, and the GP reinforced, of the timing of 2 trucks if we need the second, spacing them apart by getting something a little bit sooner. So I would say the Ferrara option as well.
Councilman Sweeney.
Sorry about that. Okay, I agree with everyone on the PTO generator, and not to reiterate a lot of what's already been said, but I take the recommendation of the fire committee very seriously because they've been working more closely on this, and unfortunately there's a split between the fire committee. It would seem like. But I also take the opinion of the fire company very, very seriously. So I would go towards the Pierce Enforcer with the PTO generator.
And Council President Corigliano.
Like Amy, I've learned a lot tonight about this, and I bet if we discussed it another night, I'd learn even more. I do agree with GP that every dollar counts. We are spending fiduciary dollars that our taxpayers work very, very hard for, and price matters. And we are looking at 3 manufacturers who are not the Chevrolets of the business, they're the Cadillacs of the business. I seem to recall when Roy was heading this up, Roy brought in these magazines showing us stock rescue trucks from some manufacturer you never heard about that sold for $400,000. Those are the Chevrolets of the business. Either way, irrelevant of which of these 3 manufacturers we end up with, I think we're going to end up with a quality vehicle. I certainly felt that when I met and looked into the Ferrara dealer for the dealer for Ferrara when I met them in Atlantic City, and they explained how their trucks were built and the quality control processes they had in place. I also recognize that 20 or 15 years ago, when we purchased our last vehicles from Pierce, they were the ultimate. Now other competitors have come up and rivaled them. I've even heard a comment earlier tonight saying that even the consultant said all of these vehicles are very, very similar. In fact, they all use the same components. They use all the same doors, essentially the same engines, transmissions, steering gear, axles, etc. The difference is really in the custom construction, such as the cab and other fitments and the body. Taking all those things into account, and also I take into account the fact that I've heard now for 4 years from the fire company, our rescue truck's on its last legs. It's not going to be reliable. It's this, it's that. This is broken, that's broken. To me, the time frame is a big issue to me. I think getting a vehicle in 9 months is good for us. I think the sooner we get this thing in here, the better. We retire the old truck, we put the old truck out to auction and get what we can for it. That having been said, I am in favor of the Ferrara PTO option. I think it's our best option. And to a point that one of you made about the total cost of this thing, wanting to know what that is, the price for that is $733,000. If you add on the extended warranty for 7, it's $740,000. That's $35,000 less than the Pierce Enforcer. The cost, that is not the cost of the vehicle. We still have to borrow money to buy this. This vehicle will be costing us far in excess of that, depending on how long we stretch the debt out for. So we need to understand that these are not the prices. The price is really this price plus the cost of debt. Again, I say for our PTO, and While it may not be exactly what the fire department wants, I think they would be very pleased and proud to have it.
So Mark, just on that statement, because the vote is 3-2 in favor of the Ferrara, I think it's just worth verifying with Chief McDermott before we send that commitment letter out that he is okay with this decision.
I can't answer that question. That's up to the department, not me. I'm just one member. There's an entire committee that was involved in this, of which I was a member, but I have no greater right to say one way or the other than any of them.
Well, I guess, Chief, I mean, when we had our meeting, John and I requested that you kind of do as much as you could, apples to apples, to reach out to other manufacturers for a very similar truck, you know, but it's just a different name tag on it. So I'm assuming that this Ferrara truck checks the boxes of which you all wanted.
As a practical matter, Jamie, this is GPS. Just as a, I'm sorry, go ahead.
There are members of the committee who felt that the Ferrara was not as well built as the Pierce. We did have a Ferrara demo engine here that we were able to go over, and there were some things that people saw on it that they didn't really like. So, you know, but I can't speak for the whole committee. I'm just one member.
Might I suggest, just as a practical matter, Chief, that you go back and discuss it with the committee and come back with a position that represents the entire fire company? And might I request of you, Mark, to crunch these numbers, what the total costs are for the different models, so that we can see what we're looking at. Maybe we'll get something back in terms of additional information, additional quotes, and we can crunch those numbers as well. But it would be helpful for me personally, and also as a representative of the taxpayers, to look at what the total out the door costs would be for the different options.
If we're going to do that, GP, I would say we have a special meeting next week. I'm sure the chief can get a hold of the committee relatively quickly, and I'm sure they would want to meet relatively quickly, and I don't want to wait another 2 weeks on this. So if we could get a special meeting just on the rescue truck, we could get that next week. It'll be virtual, so it'll be easy for us to, you know, Don snowmobiling out in the west or something. He can, you know, we could all dial in and get this moving.
Mayor, I would also suggest, I don't know if we can do it in time, but if we're going to have a special meeting, let's get that ordinance moving.
Mark, let me ask you a question about crunching the numbers in terms of the total costs to the taxpayers on the various options that are being discussed. How much time would you need to put together those numbers responsibly?
I need to get some more information. I don't have it all, but with a couple bits of information, I can come up with something reasonable based on a couple assumptions.
Understood.
It would, Mark, the assumptions would be until we actually fund the bond ordinance, we don't know what the interest rate will be.
No, John, I can estimate that, John. I guess what the unknown is I have an idea in my head how far out I think the debt service should go, but other people may have another opinion on that. Okay.
And Mark, if you wouldn't mind, I think I was on the council when that 350,000, I thought, just like you did, was set aside in capital and reserves. It may be worth just looking at the original paperwork to make sure that what the CFO told you is indeed correct.
You know, Don, that was actually Jamie and I's my first year back on the council when that 350 was put to the
I
side.
thought that was 2019, and I thought, I mean, I emailed Nancy today, and I thought she confirmed that we had that with that resolution was passed.
No, it was a resolution, but not
the ordinance never went.
The ordinance wasn't done.
We voted for it as part of we would have voted for it as part of the budget, but then we would have had to pass a separate ordinance resolution. Yeah. And
I thought we did, but
capital ordinance. I'm sorry, not resolution.
If it wasn't memorialized by ordinance but set aside in the capital budget, is the money actually there and just can't be spent until you memorialize it?
There's no money there. Understand, the money's not sitting there. There is no money. We have to borrow to buy this thing.
It was never appropriated, is what he's saying.
Yeah, it's never been encumbered, so to speak. There's no money. It That's not the fire, that's not the fire, that's our problem, and we'll deal with that. We'll come up with the money. I have a couple of mechanisms that I will present to you at the next meeting that I just have some research being done on at the moment.
Well, that'd be really helpful information. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
How
no,
much
no,
notice,
I have a way to do this, I think.
Nancy,
I can
how much
help if-
notice do
in
we
any
need
way if you need it.
for a meeting?
48 hours.
Okay.
48 hours.
So if we did one on Monday night, that would give Mark time, that would give the fire department time to get their committee, call their committee. And then we could,
Yes, I can get it onto the bulletin boards. I don't have it timed to be published in the paper, but I can get it onto the bulletin boards that will be up electronically for people to see it.
They want
you
you
to
to come up with more.
On Monday?
Can we do
Nancy,
that
you
on
don't know which
on
one.
a federal holiday?
Yeah, that's Martin Luther King Day.
Yeah, I don't think we can.
but it's not a holiday for us, is it? Is it
No,
a
it's
borough
not.
holiday?
No, it's not.
Not a borough holiday.
Then you can have the meeting if it's not a borough holiday.
Okay.
So
And even
I
if
think we just need to clarify exactly.
Sunday night, it wouldn't matter because we're gonna be virtual, so.
Yeah, I just think we need to clarify for John exactly what it is we're asking of him and the alternatives for each of the two responses. Because I think for John is this truck is acceptable or it's not acceptable. If it's acceptable, obviously we'll go forward. Well, we'll put it for a vote to go forward. But if it's not acceptable, you know, I don't know what the next step is. Is it for us to reconsider our positions or is it for us to go back and get more quotes?
How much more money are you gonna
Yeah,
cost?
I guess what I don't understand about that, Don, is the committee provided us for 3 votes, 3 bids. Why would they not all be acceptable?
Well, I guess that's the hiccup for me. I mean, I think we asked to be provided with quotes for trucks with the assumption that these would all be trucks that you would be acceptable for you, for the fire department. And so thinking that we would be able to come up with an answer and move forward tonight. So I guess that was my assumption that any of these trucks would be acceptable. I understand that you want the Pierce, but that you would be, that the fire department would accept any of them.
You know, the way I see it is if I wasn't expecting to approve this in one night, but we've been down a long road with this. We know a lot of this already. Okay, and the department has been very patient about it. I just don't see why. There seems to be a consensus that the Ferrara is our best option for, not the best option, it's an option for a number of very good reasons that we consider, that we authorize a commitment letter to be issued and we get the paperwork done, whatever that involves, POs, ordinances, whatever else we need to do to get this order in place and a deposit down. I'll run the numbers to see what kind of discounts we can get based on a prepayment, based on how much money we have already. And we'll work it out.
And just so we're clear, we did provide you from both Ferrara and Pierce with prepayment options that will bring the price of both of them down. You understand?
Yeah, I did see that, Chief, and we need to absolutely factor that in.
Yeah.
And I think that's the spreadsheet that GP is asking me to create.
We need to know what the total cost is. That's all. As well as we can estimate that now, that's our responsibility.
So if I understand correctly, if you're going to be doing the spreadsheet, we're going to have a meeting next week. We're going to be just focusing on Enforcer PTO and Ferrara PTO.
That's what I'm hearing too.
We're going to move the other stuff to the side.
Right, 5-year warranty though, so it's apples to apples, less discounts.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And then I guess in the meantime, if we're planning to have a meeting on Monday, if the fire department can have their own special meeting and get back to us with their decision on whether a Ferrara would be acceptable, because obviously at this point, that's where the council is leaning. And if not, the reasoning behind it, and then we'll try to move forward from there.
Yeah, and Jamie, if I could just add, John, this is an opportunity also to reach out to Pierce to say that there are these legalities if the council does opt to go for the Pierce, although it's not represented by the majority of the council right now. What can they accept given the legal requirements we have for the ordinances, which will take up to 2 months? Because that will help inform the decision even more. If they say absolutely not, we need a PO, and then, okay, now it's the difference isn't 30 or 40,000, it's 70,000.
If you, I mean, and I don't know how quickly you can do, and if you're going out to bond, how quickly the bond attorney can do an ordinance.
We're not going to bond. That's off the table right now.
Okay. If you were able to do that, then we were able to, if we were paying cash for it, and do a ordinance on Monday night with the special meeting, we would be able to, I'd have enough time, the 10 days, to publish it in the paper, and we'd be able to adopt it on the February 8th meeting.
Price would be up for both.
No matter what it looks like, unless the data that the CFO gave me is incorrect, we have to go to an ordinance.
Right, and so if you introduce the ordinance at the special meeting next week, as long as it's Monday night, I can get it into the paper in time to have the 10 days published in order to adopt it at the February 8th meeting.
And that's exactly what we need to get that ordinance in for Monday night.
Right.
Yep.
All right.
And I guess just a comment, I appreciate that we're getting all of our finances in order, but I assumed the list that we were discussing tonight was an acceptable list of options. So now it sounds like it could be turned away. Is that a possibility? Is it possible that thank you, but no thank you, and we're going back to the drawing board on options? I thought this was a list that was, curated for us to make a decision from.
That was my impression as well, Amy.
That was my impression.
So if there's a step that could cause us more delay, I'd like to revisit why we would have something on the list that might not work out. So hopefully it doesn't cause.
Ultimately, it's down to the borough council to purchase what they're going to purchase. But I think it behooves us to at least get the input of the people that have put this together, the professionals that have put this together. And I've been on these committees in the past, and they certainly know what they're talking about. So I think we at least owe them to, as the chief said, he's not the only one, it's the committee. So we wait 6 days, get the committee saying, but at the end of the day, we have the purchasing authority. So, I mean, we could say we're going to go buy a Chevrolet. I think that would be not in our best interest to do that, but certainly weigh all the options. This is what the rescue truck committee says. This is why, and I'm sure they'll have
I understand.
compelling reasons for what they want to go. And
right.
I think, Amy, if this is helpful, my understanding is that once the committee weighs in, they will be able to take a position on why they prefer the Pierce over the Ferrara, and specifically as possible, as concretely as possible, and how that might affect operations. And given that information, we may change the preference from Ferrara to Pierce.
Well, in the letter of intent. Oh, sorry, GP.
I think the firefighters already gave us the reason why
they did. There was a bullet, like a 6-point bullet of why they prefer Pierce. It wasn't extraordinarily detailed, but it was general points on why they prefer it. And after I got this list, I did reach out and ask if there's any additional information you want to share on any of these purchases, with the idea that, this is your last chance to basically, say why you want this or don't want that. And so truly, I thought this list was, whatever we choose, because as Mark and the mayor say, I mean, this is our choice on what to purchase. So I really did think that these were all going to be acceptable. So I feel like it's a little.
I do concur with Jamie on that.
So
Understood.
The firefighters did exactly what we asked them for. We asked them for options, and they gave us options.
All right, well, let's stick with the meeting on Monday. The fire department can get back to me, but know that, we are expecting this type of information for tonight, and we'll discuss it hopefully relatively briefly and get this ordinance done on Monday.
I
introduction.
think it'd be important to get the ordinance done too. I think that'll be a step in the right
Yeah,
direction.
yeah, because I mean, the part of the reason why we're pushing so much information tonight
Right.
and some of this decision is because of this timeline and because how long it's taken. So
Right.
I don't want to lose the momentum for this, for the fire department.
Me neither. I want to get this done.
Yeah.
I think Monday we're good. We can't go further than that, but I think Monday it'll work in everybody's favor. All right, so we'll have a special meeting on Monday. Nancy will advertise that.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes, and that will be on.
all right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Chief, for your input and for your participation tonight.
You're welcome, Mayor.
Okay, moving on to the crosswalk on Holland Avenue by the train station.
Who's got this one?
Nancy, I guess you got the email, right?
I did receive the email. It was addressed to us. I did forward it to GP and Don.
Do you want me to take it up, Nancy?
Yes, if you'd
Okay.
like to.
Okay, the crosswalk proposal that's being discussed is that the county reached out and offered to put in a crosswalk across Holland Avenue to the west of the railroad tracks. And the idea behind this is to facilitate safer pedestrian crossing of Holland Avenue. That includes any of the residents on Holland and by extension Maple, but also to provide safer way to cross Holland Avenue for the employees who are using the external parking lot for Comline Sanderson. So that's the idea behind it. The county reached out and made us a very generous offer by saying we will put in all of the infrastructure and assume all of the costs for design and building of the crosswalk.
We being they, GP, just when they said we, the county is paying, not the municipality.
That's right. The county, I was speaking with the county's voice. So the county assumes the costs for the design and the build of the crosswalk, and the borough would assume the obligation going forward to maintain the crosswalk as built. That having been said, the preliminary designs and sketches went over to Bill Ryden, our borough engineer, for review. He's absolutely good with it as designed, and there are a couple of different options in terms of placement. The primary difference being a little more and a little less to the west of the railroad tracks as you head towards 206. So I suppose that's something that we can discuss as the council and also take back to the county if we have a preference one way or another. So that in a nutshell is the crosswalk proposal. I think it's a no-brainer upon review, and if you look at the costs involved, there are not infrequently with projects of this magnitude, many tens of thousands of dollars involved that we would not have to pay for. And as everyone knows, pedestrian safety on Holland Avenue and in town in general is always a concern, but there's been a lot of focus on Holland Avenue recently. So I would absolutely throw my support behind this project. I think the costs to maintain it going forward would be de minimis. And could be easily absorbed in our DPW budget. So that's just a quick 2-second summary of what's being proposed, what's on the table.
I just have to say,
I'll just chime in.
I'm amazed. I'm just amazed and thrilled to pieces because in the past you were not putting a mid-block crosswalk in Holland Avenue. Going back to my past life as police chief, and the fact that they've changed and they're doing this, and even like a couple of years ago, they were even after I retired and on the council. So I think the fact that they've come around and have agreed to do this, and even better, pay for it.
Yep. I'll chime in too. No brainer, and also they're doing the curb cuts and making it ADA accessible for handicapped individuals as well. So there's no downside that I could see.
The only question that I would have, and I'm going to reach out to Bill Ryden on this, is that where the crosswalk lands on the north side of Holland Avenue over by Comline Sanderson, it's not clear to me how much of that is in the public easement, the borough's easement, and how much is private property on Comline property, and whether there are any restrictions or concerns that might go along with that. Channeling pedestrians across the street, say, for example, wanting to access the train station. You know, how big of a section of Comline property do they need to traverse to get across the railroad tracks and into the train station. So things like that. There are a couple of details that I would like to see fleshed out a bit more, but in general, it's hard to find fault.
GP, are you appointing this with the county or is someone else handling it?
I'm sorry?
Are you point on this with the county or is someone
Yes.
else handling it? You
Yes,
are. Be aware that as part of a recent land use board approval for an improvement at the Comline site, they were required to put in ADA crosswalk and ramps parallel to the street on their property, not crossing the street, but
Mhm.
parallel to the street. So the county should be aware of that because wherever they put this, obviously,
It should dovetail with those improvements.
Run into it, they should dovetail, correct?
Correct, correct.
GP, I think this is great. This is,
So GP, remind me
I'm sorry,
Amy,
one
go
at a
ahead for-
time.
Amy.
go ahead, Amy, sorry.
Oh, that's okay, Jamie. I think you have a delay on your wireless, but anyway, so good news. Just a question about lighting, not suggesting special lighting, just the street lighting. Is it appropriate at that spot? I know sometimes people are standing at crosswalks and if you don't see them in the shadows and they step out, you know, it's dangerous. So just wondering if lighting is an aspect of this installation.
It should be an aspect of the installation. I have not seen lighting details yet. I just reviewed the preliminary sketch today for the first time, but that's definitely going to be a discussion point going forward because either a blinking light or a stationary light or both, so that the attention can be drawn to the pedestrians wanting to cross by the drivers. So this will probably have the, well, maybe it is an intended consequence, but the positive side effect of having a traffic calming effect, because when people see, of course, you know, the crosswalk pedestrian stripes, they tend to slow down anyway.
Mhm.
So we'll definitely bring up lighting and make sure that we have a safe solution on both sides.
The email says a rectangular rapid flashing beacon, which I guess is like you push the button and the amber lights flash at the pedestrian sign. So even if the motorist can't see the person in the crosswalk, they know somebody's trying to cross because the pedestrian light's going on. So.
That's great, and that's great for us to try out that flashing light as a potential option on Main Street, also a county road. So that could be our second installation of the light. Okay, sorry, Jamie.
No,
And your screen's frozen.
oh no, I apologize if I have a delay. My only question, GP, was I can't picture it. When you cross over to Comline, is there a sidewalk from where down to the train station there? Or are you saying they're going to literally have to go through Comline property?
Well, that's not clear to me just yet. I'll have to go for a site visit and see how the preliminary sketch corresponds to the actual location. I don't know that, but obviously we would like to use the sidewalk that's there. Mhm.
At a minimum,
Right,
they'll have to put the ADA ramp on each side.
That
Right,
wasn't,
exactly. But you think that the 88 ramp is going to go into grass eventually now? So
That's what they did on Pottersville Road. Going up the hill on the right side,
oh, right. Oh, God. Okay.
We have ADA ramps.
So there was sidewalk for this, you know, for the kids who may use this to get to the train station.
Mhm.
There's
So
a big, looking at Google Maps, there's that little island at just west of, you go over the train tracks, you can make the right into Comline. It's one of their driveways into the parking lot. But if you walked up from the train station, there is a fairly big I don't know how far it is, but a fairly big setback to this grass island. And then there's more pavement. And then looks like there's a sidewalk at the next set of grass on the other side of the next driveway at Comline. So that little grass island, there's no sidewalk, but there's a big pavement section, if you will. Not that you could drive a car through it, but or maybe it's stone or whatever. But anyway, that helps to answer the question. Looking at Google Earth.
Are there any other questions?
Yes. No. Yes, I'm agreeing with GP. Are there any other questions? Sorry. All right. So we're waiting for Bill Ryden to get back to us and move forward.
I'll take this in with council concurrence. I'll take this and run with it. If everyone's in agreement that we should advance this.
Yes. No reason not to.
Yep, excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to new business. Is there any new business?
One question, Mayor. One other thing for old business. The last meeting, we had asked John Bruder to look into the borough paying or not paying the IRMA tax penalty payments for retirees. And I didn't know, John, whether you have any updates on that.
I do. I don't have a definitive answer, but I have information that may very well inform us. So the IRMA payments, which stands for, as Don, as you know, income related monthly adjustment amount, they are basically Medicare premiums for Part B and Part D benefits. And they kick in when an former employee or retiree is earning over certain levels of income, and the amounts of the premium goes up depending on the amount of income of the retiree. So Don, you had asked whether we could basically pass that expense back to the retiree, since why should the taxpayers have to pay for an increased premium simply because a retiree is making more money? When I looked into it, I have learned that the answer kind of lies with the documents that we have filed with the state health benefits plan already. So, and I didn't get a chance to ask Nancy this, even though I did talk to her earlier. I neglected to ask her this. We need to look to what our resolution says that we sent down to Trenton, down to state health benefits, Division of Pensions and Benefits, I should say, when we the resolutions that we've sent down pertaining to state health benefits. So if we have already put in that resolution that we are not going to be taking on Medicare premiums, then we can pass that cost on directly to the retiree. If we did not do that, we certainly can do that now, but we run certain risks that it may be challenged. Also, the other option is, if we haven't done it yet, we can do it looking forward in terms of future retirees. So the first consideration is to look and see, with respect to state health benefits plan, look at our paperwork that Nancy should be able to have access to, and does it have the town paying the Medicare monthly premiums the retirees being charged? If the town is paying that, then we could think about changing it retro or forward. If the town is not paying it, then we certainly can say that those premiums are the responsibility currently of the retirees.
Okay. So John, just two comments. First is, when we sent the paperwork down, and I have not seen it, IRMA didn't exist. So I suspect that the wording is simply going to be Part B. If it does say Part B, even though this is essentially a tax penalty to the retirees because they're earning too much money, in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars, I think that we're stuck making those payments. Having said that, for the people who are already retired.
Yeah, it's first off, they don't consider it to be a penalty. It's just a surcharge that's added to the monthly Medicare for Part B and D premiums. And yes, while it may not have, IRMA may not have existed at the time, what we sent down to Trenton should have indicated whether we are agreeable to pay in the monthly premium the retiree is being paid for Medicare. So if we've checked off that we're not going to pay that, then we don't have to pay it as far as IRMA goes.
All right, so let's look up that so we can get an answer. It's going to be very binary. I would say, though, going forward, the council, if there's council concurrence, should absolutely change the payment methodology where we pay the Part B basic premium, but any IRMA surcharges would be the responsibility of the retiree. I just want to see thoughts on that from the council. So just somebody retires, they earn their pension, there's no IRMA penalty. Somebody retires, they get a job somewhere else, they're making $100,000 a year. The IRMA penalty is $1,500 a year. instead of having the taxpayers pay them because they're earning money, then, perhaps the taxpayers shouldn't be making that additional payment. Thoughts from the council?
My only thought, Don, is I happened to recently and coincidentally see what another one of our somewhat neighboring towns does. Only because I handle the finances for a retiree from a somewhat neighboring town, a couple towns away. And that town, which is a much larger town than us, pays the absolute minimum reimbursement to everyone, which is $170.10 a month.
That is correct.
Okay, and no matter how much you make, that's what they pay you. So there is a precedent for paying the lowest denominator, at least with this town. I'll tell you the town, it's Randolph Township.
Okay.
I will look for the resolution to see. I mean, I think since we do not pay after April of 2017, any more retiree health benefits, we're not going to have to do this. And I think there's only 3 or 4 maybe people left that we will be paying as retirees if they stay the 25 years.
All right, so let's get an answer perhaps to the first question before we address the second one. All right, so Nancy, I'll just leave it under old business. I know you're busy, so it's not a gun to our head on this, but I think we make those payments quarterly. So if we could wrap this up in the next 3 months.
We make those payments twice a year. We
Okay.
make them in June and December.
Okay, I mean, we would owe it to the retirees to inform them of what the law says and what our obligations are if they need to change.
Right, we do have time before we make their first payment for this year.
Okay, all right, thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other old business? Seeing none, any new business?
So Mayor, I just have one. I want to thank the administrator for the new COVID policy. I think the revised policy is a big improvement from the last one. I do have one concern on it that I've articulated to some members of the council, and it's, I think, worthy of a discussion. I know some council people wanted to chime in on it. There's one provision in there where if somebody is exposed for 15 minutes to somebody with COVID, that they have to take 5 days off and use their vacation time if they're not, I think the current wording is if they're not fully boosted. So the concern I have is, one is it sets 2 categories of employees. And secondly, the CDC does permit a test to stay protocol as an option. And with Omicron being omnipresent, these people are going to be exposed forever, and we might not see them back for months or years. So I just wonder what the thoughts were from the council members on that one provision.
Caller number 2, if you can please, thank you.
Caller number 2, just to let you know, caller number 2 is Amy. She had to go mobile. So
Okay.
just to let you know, that's it.
Got it. I love the reverb.
Now we're gonna call her Echo Amy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Don, go ahead.
No, that was pretty much it. So the options we have is to set the 2 classes of employees, and the class that has not been fully boosted would be mandated to, and Nancy, correct me if I'm reading the policy wrong, every time they're exposed for 15 minutes to stay out of work for 5 days and use their sick and vacation time, as opposed to come back to work and test to stay under the CDC protocols for that.
That is correct.
So there's not a right answer here. I just have a strong feeling one way as opposed to the other. Nancy's policy is not incorrect, and it was well informed. I don't know if there's also some legal considerations that need to be taken into account. I'm not a lawyer. So I just float the question out there for consideration by the council.
I do have one question, and the last 2 weeks of fire calls we've gone to, probably 3 or 4 houses have been COVID positive houses for alarms. I mean, nothing serious, fortunately. But so if we have a borough employee that we know has been exposed at work, fire, well, I wouldn't count fire, but fire is going. DPW runs fire calls during the day. Police department goes to these places. Are they going to have to take their, hey, I went to a house, I was there for 25 minutes doing whatever that I had to do. Now I have to take my personal time because I was exposed?
Yes, that's how the policy reads. If you were in proximity to that person for 15 minutes and didn't receive your booster yet.
And how's the proximity defined? Can you remind me?
Nancy, if you have it closely there, I'm going to paraphrase 15 minutes of close contact with a person who subsequently tested positive for COVID, more or less.
Yeah, closer than 6 feet.
Okay.
I don't know if these people are wearing their masks in the house or if the DPW or the fire or the police are wearing masks when they go into the house. If they do wear a mask, then it doesn't mean, it doesn't fall under that guidelines because that's what they say.
So this guideline is just for unmasked, unvaccinated individuals?
No, people that are not fully, the new thing is fully vaccinated includes your booster.
Okay.
That is the new CDC guidelines as of last week. The CDC changes their
I know.
Yeah, every week.
guidelines.
Very confusing.
Nancy, I know I sent you emails on this before. I'm not in favor of having two categories of employees, vaccinated and unvaccinated. The Omicron variant is being transmitted by vaccinated and boosted people, the same as people who are unvaccinated. And we're also not taking into consideration prior infections where they might have natural immunity. So I disagree with having two categories.
I'm just following the CDC guidelines and what they're saying because I don't have anything else to follow. The state's telling us to follow the CDC guidelines. Our Board of Health tells us to follow the CDC guidelines, and the CDC guidelines has the two categories. So that is what I am following.
I'll chime in for a second here. I think Nancy is boots on the ground. She thinks she's in better contact with all of our departments and all of our employees than any of us are. And I'd say, and she has been made this policy malleable. I know she's changed it at least once already in the last week, and I suspect it will change again. There are no right and wrong answers here. It is difficult, and no matter where you go, you got a different protocol. And despite signs that are posted and despite what they put out and all that, I say we leave this in Nancy's hands and let her manage it and modify the protocol as needed and take a longer term to develop a policy that can be written into the manual for future events.
I agree with Mark.
I think so too. Nancy, you should have the discretion to make the adjustments on the fly depending on staffing levels. In general, I'm in favor of more options as opposed to less options, but that's your call.
Because it's so difficult and there's changes left and right all the time, yeah, I feel that I had to pick something to follow. And following what the CDC says, because that's what our Board of Health says we should be following. That's what the state says we should be following. That's what I've gone with. And I've seen emails from other administrators within the state, and a lot of them are following the same thing, the CDC guidelines, and they're changing it as the CDC changes what they're saying. They're changing it also.
All right, so it's Mark and Jamie, and I believe we should keep it in place. John and I believe we should revise it. We haven't heard from Amy.
I don't think this is a vote, Don. You can't really count who's for what.
We'll just move on with it, and if we have issues with it, then we adopt it. And if we if something happens and we get a grievance, then we deal with a grievance if we get a grievance. So from an employee, because that's a possibility of happening also. So
I just feel bad for the employee who, sits next to somebody for 15 minutes, is negative, wears a mask, and then has to use 50% of their vacation. And if it happens twice, they used all their vacation. They didn't take a single vacation day.
Well, it is at their discretion once they exhaust their vacation, their sick time. It is at their discretion as to whether they get paid or they don't get paid. And it is at their discretion whether they use their vacation time. But if it's happening, I mean, right now we are, except for DPW and the police down in our area, we are all sitting in different offices. Nobody is sitting in the same office with anybody right now.
Well, and I'm not so much concerned about exposure at the office, although that is a factor. But what if they have a family dinner and grandma had COVID and I sat next to grandma for 15 minutes and I'm losing half my sick time. These are tough decisions that have real world implications. But I think the majority of the council should help dictate the policy. I don't know if legally, John, if there's any guidance you can give us one way or the other.
The problem with not directly, Don, and the reason is that someone said earlier the CDC is changing its position on a seemingly daily or weekly basis. So that's not. There's a ton of legal implications and considerations, but so many it's difficult to even address. The question comes down to when this policy goes into effect, and if it gets challenged by an employee, is it defensible? And that's going to be determined based on what the challenge is. So I can't really say. I know I expressed to Nancy my concerns about some aspects of the policy. I know Nancy has indicated, as she has again tonight, that she's relying on the CDC for guidance, and we should be able to do that. Unfortunately, the CDC, which should be out in front of this, they change on a regular basis, which shows that this is not a science right now. It's still more of a learning as they go sort of approach. So to the extent that we're relying on the CDC guidance, and I know the CDC also, Don, you mentioned the test to stay. That's another option that the CDC does put out there. I think that it's probably going to be legally sound for us to rely on the CDC standards. But at the same time, if an employee is being treated differently based on their status, for instance, an employee who followed all the guidelines and got the vaccine, but got it 6 months ago, now they're no longer considered vaccinated in essence in the eyes of the CDC. So I think that an employee, that grievances could be filed. I think, Mr. Mayor, you mentioned grievance. I think grievances could be filed, and we're going to have to see where they shake out. I don't think I've given you a good answer, but there is not really a legal standard on this as of yet.
Okay. I think without a strong concurrence on the part of the council, we'll defer to Nancy's wisdom and we'll leave it in place. But I'm glad we had a chance to articulate it. And as Nancy indicated, it pivots. So when the CDC changes their mind again next Tuesday, we can certainly reconsider policy again.
Should we at the computer change it?
Don, yeah, Don, this is Amy. I was on mute before, and I just wanted to speak up to say I do support the work Nancy's been doing on this. I know it is changing rapidly. John Bruder, you brought up something interesting, which made me realize we don't collect vaccination information about our employees, I believe. So, we don't even have the data to understand who is what. It's very random, and we just, we're trying to follow the guidelines, and there are so many variables. So I think it's been very difficult, and I think this has been an approach that we're just trying to keep everyone safe. Nancy did say today, as she just said, she's trying to separate everyone as much as possible. I mean, this is someone who's trying to move people around a building to keep them all separate so that they stay safe and don't lose that time away from work, because we need them. We need them, and they need their roles. So I'd like to keep it as we have it currently.
Okay. All right, we can move on, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Any other new business? Oh, that was old. Was that old business? That was old business.
Yep.
So,
It's new business.
No.
all right, seeing no new business, miscellaneous discussions and approvals, facility usage application for PG basketball. Who's got this? Is this rec, John?
I mean, I guess we could, technically, it's not rec. I
Oh,
mean,
it's a use,
usually,
property.
usually it's a borough property thing.
Okay, yeah, all right.
I can take it if you want, John.
You know what? I'm more than fine with it. I mean, the group we're talking about here are the men that have been playing basketball on Tuesday nights for probably the last 10, 15 years. And they're requesting it for 7 to 9 p.m. on Tuesdays, Saturdays from 8:30 to 10:30 a.m. Nancy, I assume this got run by Dan Dolan to make sure there's no conflicts with the gym for at least those timeframes.
For Saturdays, for right now, they may have to not have it every Saturday, depending on when the basketball games for the kids are already scheduled, that we do with different towns. We may not be able to switch those. So some Saturdays, they may have a little bit of a difference here. But they also, when I spoke with Mr. Hart yesterday, they also are looking to waive some of the fees or not be charged to use the gym. And also they used to do a collection up for Anthony because he would clean the gym and do it. So they're looking to waive that because they are getting insurance, since we do require an outside group to have insurance for the gym.
Well, I think the first question is whether, these are adults that I think, understand the risks of physical activity, whether it's in our gym or whether it's at a fitness facility. So the first question is whether or not there's concurrence to move forward with this, and then secondarily, the waiver of fees.
So let me just say something. I know a number of the guys in this group. They've been here for a long time. It is an outside group. It is not a rec activity. And I am happy to have them. I'm happy to have them use our gym. I think all of them are residents. They did request a waiver of fees. Now, I would be happy to waive the fees, knowing the makeup of the group, if they held both of their events on an evening when we have a janitor in-house on the clock. But on Saturdays, we don't always have a janitor, which means we would have to call in a guy on overtime to staff it, in which case I cannot consent to waiving the fees because we'd have to call somebody in special just to manage them. I think we should go back to Tom and say, Tom, is there a possibility you could possibly move your Saturday morning to an evening and did 2 evenings a night? And the reason being is we have a janitor on staff in the building anyway. We wouldn't have to charge you anything, but if you come in on Saturdays when we not always have somebody in, we would have to charge you.
Don't we have the DPW come in to do the sewer meters on Saturday?
Yeah, but they don't staff the building. You got to have somebody there from the town.
They would be in during the winter months if there were rec basketball games that were scheduled. Yeah, so I mean, to me, that's kind of like there's. I think we can certainly approve it for Tuesday nights, and we could certainly approve it for Saturday mornings, provided that there are A, no conflicts, and B, that the janitor is going to be coming in.
Yeah, but you know what? The janitor doesn't even always come in when we have rec events there, because Dan opens up the building. And I don't think we always have a janitor there, even when there's a rec event.
For the majority of Saturdays, Anthony does come in because he does not come in on Friday nights. For the majority of Saturdays, he does come in at least to clean the police department, since they are in there every day and he's not there on Friday nights. So he does come in, so at least that the police department is getting cleaned on the weekends. For the majority of the time, I'm not saying every weekend.
Is he there those hours, 8:30 to 10:30?
He would be able to, we can probably adjust that so that he is there during that time. My biggest concern is that he's there after the 10:30, so he's spraying down the gym.
So does that involve an additional cost, Nancy, that we wouldn't otherwise incur?
Some Saturdays it may, but for the most part, no. He would be there for a few hours to clean up anyway.
All right, so I would say, I'd be okay with this, waiving the fees. They could use it on Saturdays on the condition that that's a Saturday when Anthony is in.
And I know there are some conflicts. My son plays basketball and I know he has Saturday morning games at the gym. So just so they know they're second tier to rec events.
And they've always been that, this group.
I'm sure.
Brad said the only cost is Brad just texted me and told me that the only cost is if Anthony calls in on Saturday. So he is here the majority of the Saturdays. If he calls off, then one of the DPW guys come in and we're.
But that's the same for the weekend or for the weekdays too, right?
Right, yes.
Okay. So let's do it.
Okay. So do we have concurrence? Based on,
Yes, we do. I concur.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
okay,
Right, I'll let him know that until we'll get him a schedule, and then the Saturdays that there are games in the mornings, they can't do it until basketball is over with.
Okay. Moving on to ordinances, introduction of ordinance 1107, 2021, an ordinance appropriating certain monies held by the borough for the acquisition of a dump truck with plow and salt spreader. Do I have a motion to introduce ordinance 1107, 2022?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Caminetti,
Yes.
Council President Corliano,
Yes.
Councilwoman Dietrich,
Yes.
Councilman Lemma,
Yes.
Councilwoman Murphy,
Yes.
Councilman Sweeney.
aye,
Okay. Ordinance 1107, 2022 is introduced and shall be published in summary in the Burnsville News. And that the public hearing for said ordinance shall be held on February 8th at 7 p.m. or shortly thereafter. Moving on to resolutions, resolution 28-22, resolution for authorization to accept change order number 3 from B&K Construction for work associated with the Liberty Park Improvement Project. Do I have a motion to, we'll get the motion and then we'll discuss what it is. Motion to approve resolution 28-22.
second,
Nancy, do you want to, or TP, what that change order is? Do we know?
The change order is for 3 oak trees. They did, once they started working, Carter Van Dyke saw, I'm sorry, 2 oak trees. Carter Van Dyke saw 2 oak trees that had to be removed because they were dying, they were dead. So these are 2 trees to replace those oak trees, and they're a bigger caliber, I guess the trunk is a little bit bigger, so that they don't take 100 years to get to be.
Okay. Yeah, I guess
So
we
the
don't
deer-
want those falling down.
so the deer can't kill them?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, these are
Roll call
replaced big ones, yeah.
Roll call vote.
Councilman Caminetti,
Yes.
Council President Corliano,
Yes.
Councilwoman Dietrich,
Yes.
Councilman Lemma,
Yes.
Councilwoman Murphy,
Yes.
Councilman Sweeney.
Aye,
All right, consent agenda for resolution 2922, 3022, and 3122. We good with that?
Yep. So moved.
Motion to approve all 3 resolutions.
So moved.
Second.
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 Roll call vote.
Councilman Caminetti,
Yes.
Council President Corliano,
Yes.
Councilwoman Dietrich,
Yes.
Councilman Lemma,
Yes.
Councilwoman Murphy,
Yes.
Councilman Sweeney.
aye,
Okay, bills list, resolution 3222, approval of bills assigned and listed on the bill payment list. Nancy, can you read that amount, please?
$62,176.28.
Any item needs to be pulled for discussion? Nope. Motion to approve resolution 3222.
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Councilman Caminetti,
Yes.
Council President Corliano,
Yes.
Councilwoman Dietrich,
Yes.
Councilman Lemma,
Yes.
Councilwoman Murphy,
Yes.
Councilman Sweeney.
Aye, and Nancy, that's a great job of keeping our expenditures down, 62,000. Let's have that every meeting.
I want everyone to
That will
know
happen the next meeting.
this is the shortest bill pay list in the history of PPAC and Gladstone.
Moving on to public comments, 3 minutes per person for agenda items. It's the policy of the Borough Council that all public comments on an issue shall be limited to 3 minutes. There'll be no debating between residents. Comments should be addressed to mayor and council on your device. Again, I ask members of the public, please, unless you're speaking, to keep your devices on mute. So anybody from the public have any comments on any agenda item that we've discussed tonight? And I do need your name and address if you want to speak.
Ronald Hill.
Mr. Hill, you're ROM on the computer, but anyway.
Whatever. Reference to bids in the borough. If I'm not mistaken, when you bid the park, you took the lowest bid, correct?
That's correct.
So now you have 3 bids in front of you for the Pierce Suffering Ferrara engine. Why aren't we just stepping up to the plate and say, hey, look, you got the 3 bids, this is what they are, and let's move forward. Furthermore, when the consultant, I believe he was, mentioned to you people saying that the Pierce Arrow XT was the one you should be looking at because it's a better quality than the other one that was spec'd. I'm not sure why we want to go to a lower one that doesn't meet what the consultant said. Again, one is 20 months, one is 14 months, one is 9 months. I'm not sure what the issue is between the Ferrara and the Pierce, especially when the consultant said that they're all equal.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate your opinion, Ron. I really did think that these were all acceptable options, and obviously several of us on the council thought that Ferrara at that price point was a great option for not just the price point, but for some other aspects. But some council, there's some people who wanted additional information, so we're gonna hopefully wrap this up on Monday. I'm trying my best to get this done so we can make a decision and move forward.
I understand and appreciate the effort that you're putting into trying to move this thing forward. But it's time to not wait any longer and cost the taxpayers any more money than what we've done in the past. Thank you very much.
I agree.
Thanks, Ron. Any other members of the public? Okay, seeing no other members coming forward. Is there any, I'm closing the public comment section of the meeting. Moving on to, is there any other further business of the council? Okay, seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
And just remember, we have a Board of Health meeting. We have to.
Oh, yes. For the members of the public that's interested, we have a Board of Health meeting that'll start right after this. So the Borough Council meeting with the Mayor and Council is now over. Our next meeting will be on, regular scheduled meeting will be January 25th at 7 p.m. and it will be virtual. So thank you everybody for attending. And if you'd love to stick around for the Board of Health meeting or the, please do so.
Okay.
Now
so
it's
I'm
not
gonna,
my meeting.
So I'm going to make this hopefully quick. So first, the call to order. Nancy, please read the sunshine notice.
Adequate notice of this meeting of the Board of Health of the Borough of Peapack and Gladstone was given to the Courier News and the Bernardsville News on January 6, 2022, was posted at the Municipal Complex and the Borough Library. Action may or may not be taken.
Roll call.
Dr. Caminetti?
Here.
Mr. Corigliano?
Here.
Ms. Dietrich?
Here.
Dr. Lemma?
Here.
Dr. Murphy?
Here.
Mr. Sweeney?
Here.
Mr. Skinner?
I am here.
Okay, so there's only one item on the table. At the last meeting, there was a question on the VNA services contract. Councilman Corigliano had asked, is the amount that we're paying appropriate, and what are our obligations for that contract? So I did a little bit of research. I have some answers, and I also spoke with Atlantic Healthcare, which manages VNA. So let me kind of run things down for you. So first, the question came up, what is our obligation? And I sent immediately prior to this meeting from our Lucy Forgione, who runs the Board of Health, a copy of the state statute which mandates the health services that we need to provide as a municipality. Part of those services are things that the Board of Health cannot do. Inoculation clinics, there's a few other things. If you look, there's 10 points that the state requires. The VNA helps with several of those. So then the question came up is, we're paying $3,600 and change for the contract. Is this an appropriate amount of money? So I spoke with Atlantic Healthcare, which manages the services. The amount of services they're actually providing is really rather small, but there is no other entity that I know of that can provide them. I asked them, since some of the services they're doing they no longer do because of COVID, for example, Happy Rockers Club, they would check the blood pressure of the members there, and the Happy Rockers hasn't met in a while. Lucy pointed out, yes, but they're helping out with COVID clinics. Another aspect that we questioned was the inoculation services that they give for the vaccine clinics. And I guess the argument would be that you can get a vaccine more conveniently and less expensively at CVS than to go through one of the public Board of Health clinics, but we're still obligated to offer them. So having said that, Atlantic Healthcare said they're not willing to negotiate the price of the contract at all. But I will mention that with a 5 to 9% inflation rate, our actual rate is in essence 5 to 9% less than we were paying last year, even though it's the same amount of money. So what we have is a state mandate that we have to approve a contract. There's no other sources where we can get to it. Lucy Forgione strongly supports the renewal of the VNA contract. She was profuse in her praise for the 50-year relationship that she's had with them. And I submit to you at this point in time, should we move forward and approve that contract for 2022. So discussion.
Motion to approve the contract for 2022.
So
I
you're
second
making,
that?
okay. Roll call, Nancy?
Dr. Caminetti,
Yes.
Mr. Corigliano,
Yes.
Ms. Dietrich,
Yes.
Dr. Lemma,
Yes.
Dr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Skinner.
Yes.
Okay, I'll just add parenthetically that if you look at the actual number of hours of services that are performed, it's on the high side versus the amount we're being charged, but within the realm of reasonableness. So, you know, I think it's something maybe we could look at it again at the end of the year before we get into the negotiation for 2023. But I don't see any alternatives, particularly given the state mandate.
Don, question on that. With using Berners Township as our board of health, we need the VNA to come in and make that and pick up that gap. Would that be something that we might not need to do if we use, say, Somerset County as our, as our go-to?
That's an excellent question, John. So I asked Lucy this question. So the VNA performs the services for the Board of Health, and really a portion of that $3,000 and change we pay is kind of our pro rata share for the clinics that take place. Now, I didn't get a patient count as to how many residents go in for a vaccine at one of those clinics, but there are some. And the same held true for COVID testing and probably some other ancillary services they have with education and perhaps some health screenings. So if we went to Somerset County, do they have nurses on staff? I don't think they do, and we're probably going to get stuck with the same amount of services. And I'll bet you almost anything that the rate will be higher. So, all right. Just closing things out, is there any new business? right, is there any member from the public who wishes to be heard? Seeing none, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Don.
Don, maybe we can get blood pressure taken at the council meetings in the future.
Yeah, that would definitely be a service.
And
All right,
Adam,
everyone.
good working with you. See you all on Monday.
Yep,
Okay.
thank you.
Good
See you
night.
Monday.